This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. We continue Daf Hashavua. Today we are learning a Sugya on Daf Chav Vav, which is a major Sugya in Masechta Yevamos, and that is the concept of Chalitza Pesula. Now, we're going to begin by learning that Chalitza Pesula is a Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos regarding what exactly is Chalitza Pesula. So Rashi says that we're talking about a case that Rav mentioned where you had three sisters who were Yevamos that fall to two brothers, where we say the first brother, Yehuda does Chalitza to Rachel, and Yisachar does Chalitza to Leah, and the third sister that falls, Bilhah, gets Chalitza from both. And the Gemara says the fact that they each do Chalitza to one indicates Yesh Zika. So, the fact that they both do Chalitza to the third one, indicates Yesh Zika. And the fact that they both need to do Chalitza also indicates that Chalitza Pesula, you need to do Chalitza from both. Look at Rashi. Rashi Divrei Amaschal Mida Ka'amret Tzricha Chalitza Mishneihem Kasavret Yesh Zika V'Havilei Chalitza Pesula V'Chalitza Pesula Tzricha Lachzar. Says Rashi Koloimar Mida Ka'amret Tzricha Chalitza Mishneihem, from the fact that it says you need Chalitza from both, Kasavret, that means he holds Alima mitzvahs zikas yevamin. The mitzvah of the zika of Yibam is strong. Lemirmei atarvayo, to throw him on both. V'ha chalitza al karcha chalitza psula. This chalitza is for sure chalitza psula. Koloima, Rashi learns gerua. Doesn't mean it's disqualified. It means it's inferior. Why? Shemratza liyabim. The reason why chalitza is a chalitza gerua, because since if you wanted to do yibam, eino yachal, why can't they do yibam to Bilhah? Because Bilhah is both Levi and both Yehuda and Yisachar's achos chalitzasai, and the achos chalitzasai. Here hilkach lav mal yasi here. Therefore, it's not a good chalitza. The tzricha lachsar akulan, and therefore she needs to go and get chalitza from everyone. Deloi mifka zika de tarvayu bechalitza dechad, because the zika of both will not be removed with only one's chalitza. Why? Mishum the alima zika, the zika is strong. Viramya atarvayu, and it's placed on both of them. Rashi's mashma that if you would say ein zika, then the zika would not be placed on both of them. It would only be on the bias. This is what Rashi seems to be saying. In other words, yesterday we discussed in Shul what the raya is yesh zika. Apparently what Rashi is saying is, if ein zika, then this woman is just placed on the bias, and therefore the chalitza of one of them should be sufficient. But now that we say yesh zika, that means there's zika on both of them. So since there's zika on both of them, now they both have to remove the zika. And now that the zika is strong, now a inferior chalitza will not work. Why is it an inferior chalitza? Because you can't do yibam. So what we're going to try to explain today is what's the lumdus of that. Why should it matter that you can't do yibam, but I could do chalitza? Doesn't chalitza remove zika? Why is chalitza only able to remove zika if you could do yibam? And if you can't do yibam, then chalitza is not able to remove zika? Why would that be? Now, let's speak out. Tosfos disagrees with Rashi. Tosfos has a different interpretation of what Chalitza Pesula is. Look at Tosfos. Divrei Amaschal v'Chalitza Pesula tzarich lachzar. Loi k'may shapirish b'kuntra. It's not like Rashi explains. D'chol heicha she'ena yachal yabim chashiva Chalitza Pesula. That anytime you're not able to do yibam, it's considered a pasal Chalitza. D'ha amrina b'parak hama, because we say in the first parak, gabe machzer grushasai, if somebody takes back his grusha, oihi, either her, oitzarasa, choyletzes, you do chalitza. And v'loy chashiva chalitzas grusha, chalitza psula, afagav deini yachol yabma. Tosfos is proving that Rashi cannot be correct. Because if you say the definition of chalitza psula is someone who you can't do yibum to. I'll find you a woman who you can't do yibum to, and you only have to do chalitza to one of the ladies. You don't have to do, we say by machzer grushasai, either her or her tzara, you do chalitza. That's a chalitza psula, and chalitza psula should not be able to pater the tzara. So Rashi learns the definition of chalitza psula is when you can't do yibum. Tosfos, on the other hand, look at the end of Tosfos, 4 lines from the bottom, elanira l'ri, but it would seem to the ri, deloi chashiva chalitza psula, ela achai sukukasai, leman damar yesh zika. We only consider a chalitza psula if it's the sister of a woman who's zakuk to you, leman damar yesh zika. Ay achais chalutzasai, or the sister of your chalutza l'kulayama, according to everyone. Ubalas haget, ubalas hamaymar. Or a woman who is a balas haget, or a balas hamaymar, she's already received a get, or she received maymar, debekulu kol shazika, because in all these cases the zika is weak. Why? The sister of your zekuka is similar to the sister of your wife. The ein ba zika, that there's no zika. Basically, it is Tosfos' opinion that the definition of chalitza psula is not a woman who you can't do yibum to, but chalitza psula is when the zika is weak, and when the zika is weak, then the ability to remove the zika is weakened. That's an interesting approach by Tosfos. Tosfos is of the opinion when the zika is weak, either because achos zekukasai, which is like achos ishtar, or achos chalutzasai, which is like achos grushasai. When the zika is weak, the chalitza's ability to remove the zika is also equally weakened. Okay, so I want to share with you a few nafkaminas between Rashi and Tosfos, and try to understand the hezber of Rashi. Why would it be that if you can't do yibum, then the chalitza doesn't have the ability to remove the zika? Why would that be? Chalitza is chalitza is chalitza. What difference does it make if you could or can't do yibum? Let's look in the psak of the Rambam. The Rambam paskins yiroli shekach hadin b'shtei Yevamos habois mi bayis echad. If you have 2 Yevamos coming from one bayis, v'ha'achas mehen, and one of them asura al Yevamos, asur on the Yevama mishum shniya, alza shniya, oy mechayve lavin, or an isur the Irai says alive, oy mechayve asay, shem chalatz la'asura loy hutro tzarasa. If you do chalitza to the asur one, it does not matter the tzara. Chalatz l'tzara hutro ha'asura. If you do chalitza to the tzara, the asur one is permitted. Now, what kind of chalitza psula is this here? Is there a weakened zika here? Is the zika weakened because she's an isur d'Rabbanan? Just you can't do yibum, but there's no... When did we ever see that zika is weakened when there is an isur d'Rabbanan or a chayve lav? All this, the Gura writes, is the Rambam is going lefi shitas Rashi that the definition of chalitza psula is a woman who you can't do yibum to. So if you can't do yibum to her because she's chayve lavin, or she's chayve asay, or because she's isur d'Rabbanan, so it's not a weakened zika, but it's an inability to perform the mitzvah of yibum. You know, we never saw that the isur lav or isur d'Rabbanan would in any way interfere with the zika. So the Gra says the Rambam goes like shitas Rashi. Now I want to show you the Ramban. The Ramban adds a hezber. Why would chalitza be weakened because you can't do yibum? So the Ramban says very interesting. Nirali tam chalitza psula shetzricha lachsar. It would seem to me the reason why a chalitza psula you have to go to all the brothers mishum da'asauha kipoiteres hazika. Because when you have a chalitza psula, it's as if you're just pattering the zika. V'loi kipoiteres kedushin harishonim shel ha'ach. But not that you're exempting the original marriage of the brother. What does that mean? What does Yibum do, Rabbi say? When someone is miyabim a woman, so what happens? How could you be miyabim the woman, but she's your brother's wife? You're not to live with your brother's wife. The answer is, the way Yibum works is, I'm taking the place of the brother. Yibum is, I am in lieu of my brother used to be married to you, and now I am supplanting the brother. I am in lieu of the brother. So when I could do Yibum, then the way Chalitza works is, Chalitza is in lieu of the Yibum, and Yibum is, I become the first brother. But if it's a Chalitza Pesula because I can't do Yibum, then nobody would ever say that I'm supplanting the brother. Then the Lamdus is, I'm just removing the Zika you have to me. Okay, fine, that's the Zika you have to me, but my brother, you have Zika to my brother, so he has to remove the Zika you have to him. You see, if the way Yibum works is, I take the place, if Chalitza works, that it's in lieu of Yibum, and Yibum is I take the place of the brother, so then, if I do a Chalitza Kshera, you know why my brother doesn't have to do Chalitza? Because it's like, this woman is still married to the original brother. It's just that I'm not doing Yibum, I'm doing that which replaces Yibum. But that's only if I could have done Yibum. But if I couldn't have done Yibum, then you can't say Chalitza is in lieu of Yibum, which is taking the place of the first brother. I actually did not understand this 15 minutes ago, but I think it's pretty clear. In other words, the way Yibum works is it's a replacement for the Achar. In other words, look at the Lashon of the Ramban. The Ramban says, Chalitza Pesula mishum da'asua kepoiteres hazika, it patters the zika v'loi kepoiteres kedushin harishon shalach. It's not exempting the first kedushin of the brother. Dumya de get. Now the chalitza is like a get, right? Chalitza is like a get. By the way, we do find in Shas that Chalitza has a lamdus of a get, because the Gemara in Kedushin wants to say that Chalitza should be able to pater a woman, a married woman. In other words, you should be able to dismiss one's wife with Chalitza kal v'chomer from Yevama. That if Yevama could get rid of if you could remove a Yevama with Chalitza, you surely should be able to remove your wife with Chalitza. So you see, Chalitza has an element of gerushin. But that's when it's Chalitza Pesula. When it's Chalitza Kshera, it's more than that. It's in lieu of the Yibum. Shekshehi ru'uya labia. When she's roi for bia, v'habia shalzu poiteres al karchinu tzara. And of course, the bia of this man would exempt the tzara. So then, av hachalitza b'makam Yibum kaima, the Chalitza would take the place of Yibum. Ava kashe'ena ru'ya liyibum. But if she's not roi liyibum, Asua kimagarish kedusha ha'achroinim beget. It's not like you're pattering the original kedushin, but it's like you're being megarish the latter marriage with a divorce. In other words, she used to be married to brother A. She was zakuk to me, so she's attached to me. And I'm doing chalitza and I'm removing her attachment to me. But how does that help my other brother? It has no effect on my other brother. It can only have an effect on my other brother if somehow we could get into the original relationship. She used to be married to brother A, and now if one of the brothers does Yibum, he's supplanting the original relationship. He's being mamale malkum the original relationship. So that for sure exempts the whole bias. So Chalitza, where you could have done Yibum, likewise exempts the whole bias, but not if it's a Chalitza Pesula. V'chol achas patura ba'atzma. If it's a Chalitza Pesula, each one has to be exempt on their own. Kishem shekedusha ba'atzma, since each one has its own dependent relationship with her. V'chein ba'achem, and likewise with the brothers. So the Ramban seems to be going lefi Rashi's pshat, that the definition of Chalitza Pesula is when you could not do Yibum. And the reason why, in that case, everyone has to do Chalitza is because Yibum has the capacity to exempt the bias. It is Poiteres Kedushin Harishonim, so Chalitza could take the place, but only if you could have done Yibum. So we have over here, this I believe is the Sefer Rishima Shiurim. Rishima Shiurim is Rabbi Yisrael Kalmanovich, where he just sort of spells this out. He says, B'shitas Rashi, in Rashi's Shita, Efshar Lefaresh, the Hageder V'zehu, here's the Geder. The Chalitza Havalei B'makam Yibam. When Chalitza is in the place of Yibam, Yesh Ba Kiyum HaMitzvah Shel Abayis, you are fulfilling the mitzvah on that house. Umamela Niftaras HaYevama Mikolo Achin. And then the Yevama is pater from all the brothers. Kivan Shekvar Neskaima Mitzvasa, since the mitzvah was already fulfilled. Masha'en Kein Kisheina Rui Liyibam, as opposed to if she's not Rui Liyibam, Ina Chalitza Pateras HaYevama Pateras Kiyam HaMitzvah. The Chalitza doesn't exempt the Yevama as a fulfillment of the mitzvah. Ela B'Toras P'tur. It's only a disengagement. V'gerushin al Rishus Hayavam. It's not. If Chalitza is b'makam yibam, there's a kiyam hamitzvah on the bias. Otherwise, it's just a disengagement. V'al kein tzarich p'tur poiter l'chol yom v'nei. Then each yavam has to have a p'tur by itself. K'masher kosav Rashi. D'loi mifka azika de tarvayu b'chalitza dechada. The zika of two will not be removed by the chalitza with one's chalitza. Mishum da alima zika v'ramya atarvayu, because the zika is strong and it's placed on both. Here, by the way, here he explains what the raya to yesh zika is. V'hainu the kivan shel man da'amar yesh zika. Since according to man da'amar yesh zika, yesh chalois zika b'fnei atzma l'chol yavam. There's a separate chalois of zika to each yavam. Mishum hachi tzarich petur nifrad l'kol echad. Therefore, you need an independent exemption for each one. Lahafkia es reshusai. Ma'ashein kein l'man da'amar ein zika. Now, Asi, this is the proof that yesh zika, because if you hold ein zika, there's no zika looming over every yavam separately. There's one zika on the bias. So then even a chalitza psula, ein zika, ein l'chol yavam chaloi zika b'fnei atzma shetzarach lahafkia v'al kein sagi v'chalitza achas. If we were to hold ein zika, then even a chalitza psula would work, because there is no independent zika on each brother. It's just one zika on the bias. Okay, this was the easy part. And in your zechus, I want to just take it one or two more steps. We'll see if you can help me out here. There's a seemingly famous Chakira of the Chacham Tzvi, Tzvi Ashkenazi. In fact, by the way, one of the corrections on the Chanukah book, one of the final edits, was to say Shaus Tshuvas Chacham Tzvi. So the editor said, "Who's that?" So it said he's the father of Yaakov Emden. So what do you mean? Who is he? So we put in, okay, Reb Tzvi Ashkenazi. Okay. But Reb Tzvi, this is actually Siman Aleph. So if you want to sound like you're a Baki in the Chacham Tzvi, say over this Chakira, and nobody will know. It's just the first thing that he says in the Sefer. He says, V'tar Chakira's Chacham. We know that you need Kavana by Chalitza. Why do you need Kavana by Chalitza? Is Chalitza a mitzvah, and therefore, just like mitzvahs tzrichos kavana, Chalitza needs kavana? Or is Chalitza a kinyan, and kinyanim need kavana, and therefore Chalitza needs kavana? And there's an afkamina. Says the holy Chacham Tzvi, B'tzar Chakir's Chacham. Ihach kavana d'be'inam b'Chalitza, this kavana that we need by Chalitza, haynu mitam de mitzvahi? Is it because it's a mitzvah? Ke'ein kavanas ha-mitzvah is the pasku roi v'apoiskim, the mitzvah tzrichos kavana. Oy ke'ein kavanas ha-haknois. Or is it similar to the kavana that is required by transaction, the be'ina das koino makna, that you need the das of the owner, the koine, and the one who gives it over. Right? In other words, is the kavana here a kavana for a mitzvah, or is the kavana here a kavana for a transaction? Because the Gemara is going to say in Yevamos nun beis amud beis, ha'oider b'nechsei hagar, one who digs in the property of a ger. Right? We know that if a ger dies and he doesn't have relatives, his nechassim are hefker. Yeah. So let's say somebody who's oider, he digs in it. Now, technically, oider is a kinyan, right? The only thing is, the guy thinks that it belongs to the ger. Because savar shaloi hein loy kani. If you think it's his, it's the ger's, you're not koina. Mishon doloi kakivan lamikne. You didn't have in mind to be koina. So to chalitza, it's a kinyan. Or It's a kinyan where sort of you're makna the woman her own rights. And that's why you need kavana. If the kavana need b'chalitza is a kavana for a mitzvah, then it needs to be supplied at the time of the act. In kol mitzvahs, like all mitzvahs, you need to be mechavin at the time of the mitzvah, like we say in Rosh Hashanah, Chav Tesam and Aleph. Niskavin shomei avla, niskavin mashmiya lo yotza. If the listener was mechavin and the blower was not mechavin, you're not yotza at shemiskavin shomei mashmiya until the listener and the mashmiya are mechavin. Va'amar le Rabbi Zera l'shamei. Reb Zera told his attendant, "Ichavin v'takali, have kavana and blow for me. Ubevadei achar kavana salev hein advarim." Now, certainly, after the kavana are the words, meaning the ikar is the kavana. We'll see what this means. If the kavana needed by chalitza is just the kavana that's needed for kinyan, even if that was not his mindset at the time he did the chalitza to mater l'shuk, let's say the guy knows let's say the guy just has an awareness. When he takes off the shoe, she becomes mutter to the shuk, and he does chalitza to her, and he's not coerced at all. He's just not mechavein to release her. He just knows when he does remove the shoe, he is releasing her. We don't care about what he's thinking. Let's say he tells us afterwards, oh, by the way, I didn't have kavana, then we don't believe him. In other words, if a guy blows shofar and he says, by the way, I wasn't mechavein, then he's not yoytze. If a guy does chalitza with an awareness of what it accomplishes and he tells us afterwards, oh, by the way, I forgot to have kavana, then it's irrelevant because an awareness of what it accomplishes is all that's needed. You don't need the same level of active kavana. But the bottom line is there's a Chakira in the Chacham Tzvi. What kind of kavana is needed by Chalitza? Is it kavanas ha-mitzvah or kavanas ha-kinyan? So Reb Nachum, let's see if we could figure this out, wants to say that the Machlokes, Rashi and Tosfos regarding what is Chalitza Pesula, is it like Rashi says that when you can't do Yibum, then the Chalitza is inferior? Or is it like Tosfos says that when the Zika is weak, then the Chalitza is not really as effective? This is dependent on these two tzedadim in the Chacham Tzvi. Let's see. V'nei aliba de Rav, pligi Rashi v'Tosfos. There's Machlokes in Rav, who says Chalitza Pesula is no good. It's Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. The Rashi soiver the chetei chalitza pesula. Rashi holds that for it to be chalitza pesula, sagi b'hashin real yibum. It's sufficient that the woman is not fit for yibum. V'atois v'savri the chalitza pesula dav gechad the kol shazikasa. Toisus shita is not enough that you can't do yibum. You also need a weakened zika to create a situation of chalitza pesula. V'hanira behezver machlokusam, says Reb Nachum, it would seem, in explaining their machlokes, dinei Chacham Tzvi chakar oid b'mitzvahs chalitza. Chacham Tzvi has a chakira imhurak kedei shloi tisagen. Is it just a kinyan? We don't want the woman to be stuck for the rest of her life to this yavam, so you release her with a kinyan. Oidim have a mitzvah la gavra lachloitz. Or is it there's a mitzvah on the man to do chalitza? It's not just we don't want the woman to be stuck. It's a mitzvah, like he has to put on tefillin, so under the circumstances he has to do chalitza. V'hanaf gamina ichashu eno roitza be'ibam v'chalitza. Let's say like this. The guy says, I don't want to do yibam. I don't want to do chalitza. And she says, you know what? I don't really care. My husband died. I'm going to stay home and bake chocolate cake, and sew mittens for my kittens for the next 70 years. So he doesn't want to do Yibum Chalitza, and she's not pressing for it. So we say to her, but poor lady, you're not guna. She says, I don't care. I've never been so happy in my life. I was happy to get rid of my husband, she says. And I'm not interested in his brother. So let him do whatever he wants, and I'm going to do what I want. So that's Gufa, a very interesting nafkamina in the Chacham Tzvi. If it's a kinyan, so she doesn't want the kinyan, so don't do the kinyan. But if it's a mitzvah, we would force him to do the mitzvah, the same way we force him to do all mitzvahs. If you're going to take the first sad, that it's a kinyan, so she shouldn't be an agunain. She doesn't care. We would force him. The Chacham Tzvi seems to conclude it's a mitzvah on the Yavam. V'habir b'Chakira zois. What's the explanation in this Chakira? Im ha-mitzvah is Chalitza hu machmas ha-mitzvah is yibum sha'alav. Is the pshat like this? Here's the explanation. Why would Chalitza be a mitzvah? You know why? Because Yibum is for sure a mitzvah. And if you don't want to do Yibum, so then to remove from you the onus of mitzvahs Yibum, you do Chalitza to remove the onus of mitzvahs Yibum. Ima mitzvahs Chalitza machas ha-mitzvahs Yibum sha'alav shekiven shemechiv liyavma tzarech lazat Chalitza l'padim mitzvahs Yibum. Since you're obligated to do Yibum, you would have to do Chalitza to exempt yourself from Yibum. Umemela al-yidei ha-mitzvahs Chalitza, memela through the mitzvah of Chalitza, matir nami l'shuk. It happens to be you're going to matir her l'shuk once you're at it. So in other words, the reason why Chalitza would be a mitzvah is because you have a mitzvah to do Yibum. You don't want to do it to remove that chiyuv. You do Chalitza. Once you do Chalitza, she becomes mutar l'shuk. Oida mitzvah Chalitza rakidei latil l'shuk. The whole mitzvah is only to release her. V'lo mitzvah mitzvah Yibum sha'alav. It's not a way to get out of the mitzvah of Yibum. Venira loymar, it would seem to say the hasafek hanal mevur begemara bezeh. This safek is explained in the Gemara. The Ratzasa Gemara loymar. The Gemara had a havamina to say the yibum chashav efshel l'kaim shneim ha'idei chalitza. Remember the Gemara? The Gemara said, well, why would you, according to Reish Lakish, that when it's efshel to reconcile both, then we're not going to say asay dei chalitza. I say could just do chalitza. So that sad seemed to be saying that Chalitza is actually a replacement of the mitzvah of Yibum. That's like the first sad. They have a mitzvah of Yibum, and to remove the onus of Yibum, you do the mitzvah of Chalitza. So Kolam that Yibum Yachlis Bebezoi Fana. That means Yibum has two ways to go. Heina Yedei Bia, you could do Yibum through Bia, Veheina Yedei Chalitza. When you do Chalitza, you're in the mitzvah of Yibam. But the maskana of the Gemara is, no, Chalitza Magim is nothing. Because Chalitza is not a mitzvah, it's only a kinyan.
What about when we say that we don't want to be mevatel mitzvah Yevamin? That includes Chalitza. Because if it didn't include Chalitza, then we could say that you're not being mevatel because he could have done a Chalitza in place of Yibum.
Whenever we say mitzvah asur levata mitzvah Yevamin, we say what? Do Yibum. We say you're not allowed to do Yibum. Why? Oh, you're saying asur levata mitzvah Yevamin is assuming that Chalitza is the mitzvah, right?
Also, yeah.
Because if it wasn't the mitzvah, then l'chayra you're being mevatel mitzvahs Yevamin al yedei doing the Chalitza.
Could I ask even more simply, according to the first sad, that Chalitza is a replacement of Yibum, if there's no chiyuv of Yibum, there shouldn't be a chiyuv of Chalitza altogether. It's only doing it to take away Yibum. If there's no Yibum, there shouldn't be Chalitza either.
Right. So you'd have to say that there are two things here. Chalitza takes the place of the mitzvah of Yibum, and when there's no Yibum, there's no mitzvah of Chalitza, but there's still a kinyan aspect, right? So she still needs to be released. Now, the Nachum says, "Va'amna madayim yesh makom lestapik im nehida gemara maskal chalitza lo chashav b'chlal Yibum." True, the Gemara concludes Chalitza is not chashav makom Yibum, which seems to be the Gemara's concluding that Chalitza is not a mitzvah, Avam kamakim zen nishar afilu via maskana da mitzvahs yibum ka mechayvoi bechalitza. Hainu shachiv lachloitzu kedei lafkia mitzvahs yibum sha'olav. Meaning the question is, the Gemara had a havamina that chalitza is a mitzvah just like yibum. There are two ways to do yibum, either bia or chalitza. And the maskana of the Gemara is no, there are not two ways of doing yibum. There's only one way of doing yibum, bia. But now in the maskana, what's the pshat? Is the pshat chalitza is a way to remove the chiyuv of the mitzvah of yibum? It's not a mitzvah, but it's a way of removing the chiyuv of the mitzvah of yibum. And then then the pshat would be you're not mevatel the mitzvah of yibum because chalitza like exempts you from the mitzvah of yibum. Oi. It's not exempting the chiyuv of yibum. It's not really an offshoot of yibum. It's like a separate thing to mater you l'shuk, but it's not removing from upon you the onus of yibum. The shaila is the havamina in the Gemara thought chalitza is another option, another way of fulfilling yibum. The maskana is it's not. But is it the pshat? It exempts you from the mitzvah of yibum, or is it that it's just a way to exempt your l'shuk? So I think he wants to say that these are the Machlokes, Rashi, and Tosfos.
We could say that Chalitza is independent of yibum. They're two separate things.
Right. Right. So that's the other tzad. Chalitza is not a way to remove from upon you the responsibility of yibum, but it's just a separate thing, like Michael was saying, a davar stud is to exempt a woman l'shuk. So right. Mitzvah tzedades. You still didn't fulfill your main mitzvah, but you don't have to. You could sort of do this and free her. So we'll do one sad. Venira de Rashi serve the Chalitza have a mitzvah yibum. Rashi holds Chalitza is an offshoot of yibum. It's not an alternative to yibum, but it is a way of exempting you from that responsibility. V'nimtza, the chol Chalitza ba k'dei lafkia achi of yibum sha'alav. The Chalitza comes to remove from upon you the responsibility of yibum. The Chalitza zu muteres oisanami l'shuk. It also accomplishes this other aspect. So Nasan, that's what you're asking. You're asking, well, if you can't do yibum, then you shouldn't do chalitza. It sounds like it does both. Umishum kach kishein aruya liyibam. Then lekal ameimar shachalitza nasis mipasa mitzvahs yibam. You wouldn't say the chalitza is being done because of the responsibility of yibam. Sharei in aruya ve'in olam mitzvahs yibam. Nimtza dekach chalitza rak kedei latir l'shuk lavad. It's only going to permit you l'shuk. Shuk. I'm sorry, I don't have the rest. Ulahachi have a chalitza grua. This is a low-level chalitza because it's not a chalitza that you're doing the mitzvah of exempting yourself from the responsibility of yibum. Why is it a chalitza grua? It's a chalitza without the mitzvah element to it. But l'chayra Tosfos cannot learn that way because Tosfos learns there never is a mitzvah element in chalitza because chalitza is not a mitzvah. Chalitza is just a side thing of removing her l'shuk to have a rak chalitza kodu machnas eina nasis k'mitzvasa. Therefore, Rav holds you need to go to all the brothers because this chalitza is not is only a matir. Now, v'chol zeh, I'm sorry, I'm over here now. Sorry, you only have the first half. Apologize. V'chol zeh l'shitas Rashi. I didn't copy because I didn't know what to say. But now we do. V'chol zeh l'shitas Rashi. Avo shitas ha-Tosfos da chalitza rak la'atir l'shuk. Chalitza is only to matter woman. Tosfos can't learn that if you can't do Yibum, it's a low-level Chalitza, because according to Tosfos, Chalitza has nothing to do with Yibum, right? Only Rashi could learn Chalitza Gerua is because you can't do Yibum, because Rashi learns the function of Chalitza is, it's a mitzvah which removes from you the responsibility of doing Yibum. But according to Tosfos, that's not what Chalitza is. Chalitza is just a matir. So Tosfos cannot learn it's Gerua because you can't do Yibum. It's got nothing to do with Yibum. Who cares if it's not royal Yibum? So it's a Chalitza Ma'alya. So therefore Tosfos learns a whole different mahalach, and I don't have a beer so clearly in what Tosfos holds, that when it's a weak Zika, then it becomes a weakened Chalitza. That probably requires a separate point of Iyun. In other words, what does Tosfos hold? But I think we got a nice understanding of why Tosfos disagrees with Rashi and what the lamdas of Rashi is. The Gemara has a havamina that Yibum with Chalitza is Efshel L'Kayim Shneim, and the Gemara falls off of it in the Maskana. The Gemara says Chalitza Makam Yibum Lav Klumhi. But what's the pshat in that? Is the pshat that it's not a mitzvah like Yibum, but it does remove upon you the responsibility of Yibum, or does Chalitza have nothing to do with Yibum at all? And that would seem, according to Nachum, to be the Machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. Okay, Rabbi, say thank you so much, and Be'ezus Hashem, we'll see everybody Monday night, and any other time you want. And tomorrow, Monday, I think we're starting something new. We have to figure out the time of that in lieu of Tarma Devara. Okay, Rabbi, say have a great day. Shkayach. Thanks so much. Kol Tov. Okay, bye. Have a good day. Kol Tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.